You're listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, giving you weekly sports analysis, opinions, and discussion. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and J-Raff.
Oh, and now the Steelers are closing in and look really hot, you know.
Indeed they do, Justin.
Sorry.
Welcome, everyone, to the 193rd episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, alongside of me, co-host Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be back. You know, I'm just bubbling over with excitement this week of the NFL season. Hasn't happened often this year. I mean, let me. I've been excited, but just not necessarily to talk a lot about football, including teams I care about. And that hasn't been the case the last couple weeks.
Yeah, and just to further our point that we've mentioned many times over the nearly 5 years we've been doing this show now, we literally talk sports all the time. And as you can see, we're getting ready to do the show. And what are we talking about? We're talking about sports and about whether or not someone should or shouldn't have changed the pick in our weekly pick-em that we run. And this week it turns out they should have changed the pick, but they didn't do it. That would be you.
That would be me.
But I shouldn't say too much because I have no idea how well I'm doing. I don't even remember all the.
I'm struggling. I had been doing pretty well the last few weeks. Not so hot today. So that's all right though. I have after week 2, I've picked against the Eagles every week. I've still been right a lot.
You've been subscribing to what I call the no lose scenario, right? Because
they won today.
You pick against your team always, because then if they lose, you win in the pick'em, which gives you one step closer to winning the week, and then at the end of the year, winning it all. But if they win and you lose in the pool, it doesn't matter because your team won.
Right, exactly.
Like, never pick your team, ever. I don't care if they're playing the Cleveland Browns.
It's the best one. It's the best, way to be wrong every week. Yeah.
Right, I mean...
and when you're right, you're like, well, at least I got it right.
Right, at least I got it right, because I knew they were going to lose, and they did. But, they lost, doesn't matter, or they won, that's great.
I guess if your team is, really good... You have more difficult time with this. But when your team isn't, even when they're in first place,
isn't that that just kind of puts the exclamation point on our fandom, because it's literally better for us, for our morale, to cheer against them, or not to cheer against them, but to think they're going to lose.
Right. When our best point of our best reasoning for how we should go about our thinking of a week to week schedule is, well, we've found the best way to hedge our bets. That's the highlight. That tells you something about what we're betting, not literally, but what we're putting our emotional stake on.
And really, this is just pro football, because we don't do a pick-em in hockey or baseball or even college football. I mean, sometimes we'll do the bowl thing.
Yeah.
But this, on a week-to-week basis, it's NFL or bust. And just the way the Eagles and Dolphins have performed over our entire lives.
Yeah.
We haven't grown accustomed to winning all that often or as much as we'd like, so it's better for us to hedge our bets, as Justin said. But yeah, so welcome to the 193rd show. We'll be talking NFL tonight. I think we're in week 14 here. Things getting heated up in the NFL. Clinching scenarios out there. We still have an undefeated team.
Unreal.
And a couple great teams in the AFC, though one suffering some injuries that could make the race to gain the home field advantage interesting, as well as them maintaining their spot in the division with that loss today. And we'll get to all of that shortly, but first we do want to let you know that this is an interactive show. There's multiple ways that you can contact us, and Justin has that information for you.
Yeah, we'd love to have your take on any of the teams or games that you've watched today or are watching today. So you can call the show using the Mays Sandwich Shop hotline at 530-563-6297. Again, 530-563-6297. You can also email the show anytime using the Mays Sandwich Shop email inbox at joemaysandjraff@gmail.com. Again, joemaysandjraff@gmail.com.
You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Multiple pages on there. You can go to the actual show page, the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, or you can go to the place where the home for all of our radio productions are. That's JMNJR Radio. We also have websites for the show, joemaysandjraff.com or jmnjrradio.com, and that's where you'll find the live audio stream embedded on the homepage of jmnjr.com. jmnjrradio.com, and also on the individual show page, joemaysandjraff.com. You can find the archive audio and video as well, and links to everything that we do, ways to contact us. So check out the websites whenever you can. All right, so Week 14 NFL action. We still have games, I think a handful of games going on right now, or just two, actually.
I hate
late
the
season.
schedule.
Yeah.
Look, I get that it's going to be unbalanced, but two is ridiculous.
2 games, not
There should
enough.
be minimum 4.
4,
Especially when there are no buys. When there's no buys and no Saturday games yet. So
That's
no
the next
buys,
2
no
weeks,
Saturday
yeah.
games, and you have 2 games on Sunday afternoon. Like I don't.
It was a
get
lot
it.
of action early, but I agree. I'd like to have 4 games, 4 or 5 games in the later
I'd
spot.
love to have it split. That's not going to happen. I get that. And geographically, in terms of time zones and things, like I get that some teams make more sense to play late, but there's a lot of teams that would make sense to play. Like there's nothing wrong with like a 4:30 game occasionally on the East Coast.
Right.
They do it. Like why can't that just? I don't know. It just bothers me. So I wish it was more balanced. But the NFL, I'm sure they have their reasoning.
I'm looking at the scoreboard here from NFL.com, and I find it interesting that the team at NFL.com already gave the win to the Packers and the loss to the Cowboys. As I'm looking at their records, and it reflects 13 games played, which we know in Week 14 that would be at the conclusion of the Week 14 games.
Yeah.
Because the standings for the Raiders and Broncos are 12 total games, 5-7
Yeah.
Raiders, 10-2 Broncos. Denver is on top in that game, 12-7.
Yeah.
But the Cowboys, Packers, they've already given the loss to Dallas and the win to Green Bay. Now that's what it's looking like because Green Bay's up 14-0. But it's interesting that's literally only game.
Dallas took the opening drive, went down the field, and threw a pick in the end zone.
Got that Green Bay defense.
It got tipped by the receiver, I believe, or DB, and then got picked.
If I want any hope of winning my fantasy game, I need the Monday night game tomorrow night to finish 3-0, or 2-0.
This is a playoff game for you.
Yes,
too.
it is.
Yeah. See, I missed out.
I'm the 4 seed. I'm losing to the 5 seed. My uncle.
I believe I had a shot last week if I would have gotten a lot of help with some tiebreakers and things like that. I could have snuck in the last spot. I needed Darren McFadden to get less than 7 points last week, and he got 9.
Yeah.
So
and he was actually up higher, and then he fumbled a couple times.
And so, now, I don't know that I would have gotten in. I still would have needed help on some tiebreakers. I know at least a couple things happened, but I would have needed a lot to happen in order for that to work out. So I wasn't too upset about it, but at least I wasn't the second worst team, I don't think, this year.
No, you were not.
Because of the second half run. Halfway through the season, I was the worst team. But then...
you were either third or fourth.
Top
worst.
2 receivers being Dez and Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah,
really
starting the season off on a strong note, huh? Yeah. So if I want any hope of winning, I need the Packers to pick the Cowboys a couple times. Returning one would be nice, or a special teams touchdown.
Keep that shutout.
Then I need DeAndre Hopkins to go off against New England tonight.
Okay.
I need probably about 25 to 30 points because my uncle has Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, and Lamar Miller left to go.
So you're not real confident in the... Well,
I'm also losing. I'm not even winning. I'm losing, and he has 3 people. So I have Packers defense, special teams, and DeAndre Hopkins.
I like...
Despite what the text says, I'm not putting my money on Slick Willie's Cowboys. I like my money. I want to keep my money, so no way am I betting on them.
Yeah, I'm not ever betting for the Cowboys.
In any capacity,
In any
right?
capacity,
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm also losing in WEU League in the playoffs, so it's really
better.
a great weekend for me, really.
Great.
He is done, thankfully. He's done. I was losing by about 30 with one guy left, and that man is Eddie Lacy, who I put in last night because they said he was going to be the rock carrier. And he is. He already has a touchdown. The problem is I need about 150 yards and 2 touchdowns to be anywhere close to moving on in that league.
Yeah.
So it looks like the fantasy season is going to come to a close for me 1 week after it ended for you. So we probably shouldn't have a fantasy show because the expertise has not been there the last few years. This really is the first year that we've struggled because, as I said to my father a few days ago, the last 5 years, it's been you, me, or Uncle Rich, the listener from New England, that's always yapping at us on here.
There's been a little bit of dominance.
The 3 of us have been in the championship each of the last one of the 3 of us
parity.
have been in the championship each of the last 5 years. So, we feel like it's time to let someone else have a chance.
We're like the Big Ten East.
Right. Okay, so enough of that stuff. Let's get back to the actual action on the field. We said a little bit about the 2 late games, and the Cowboys actually just scored to cut the Packers' advantage almost in half.
And they should have had another touchdown. So like that game's not over yet, especially the way the Packers.
Despite what NFL.com wants you to believe, that game is not over yet. But there was a game on Thursday night, and it was actually a pretty interesting game, entertaining game. Came down to a field goal at the end. That was the winning margin of 3 belonged to the Cardinals, who moved to.
I still went to bed at halftime.
Moved to. I didn't see any of it, so moved to 11-2 with the 23-20 victory over the Vikings.
They're really good.
The Vikings are looking to keep pace in the NFC North, depending on what happens with the Packers and the Cowboys game. But the Cardinals. I mean,
I don't know what to make of the Vikings.
They're very inconsistent. They have some great weeks. I think
they're really good. I think they might be the best of the average NFL teams. They
deserve to be a wild card, but that's about it.
Right. And with the way things are going and the way, some of the teams in their division, are playing, the Bears aren't a pushover now, who do they have left?
Or the Lions, though. They're not a pushover.
Who do they have left? They have Chicago, another heartbreaker today. I don't know if it was Robbie Gould on the kick today. I assume it was. Last week he missed one that should have won it for him. This week he missed one that should have won it. It would have tied it. That's tough. I like Robbie Gould. He's won them a lot of games, but it's been a rough couple weeks.
They've got an interesting schedule.
And I really am rooting for them hard on that Sunday after Christmas.
Well, Week 15 they have Chicago at home. That's a big game because it essentially will pretty much kick Chicago out of the playoffs if they would beat the Bears next week. Then the following week they're playing the Giants, and they need that win just to keep pace because you expect the Packers to continue to plow along if they beat the Cowboys today. And then the last week, what I want as a fan perspective is I want these two teams to be tied, or the team that's a win back, if they win, it'll create chaos. Right. It'll just be great. Them being tied, though, to make it an actual, real head-to-head win-and-go-home type scenario, that's to be the best outcome.
Now, it's unlikely that actually, I don't even know if it can happen. But I doubt that game will be for a bye or anything because I'm assuming Arizona is going to get that bye at 11-2, and Carolina clinched a bye today, I believe. But that could be for the winner takes the division. Winner or loser is the wild card, which could set up an interesting to see who's coming. To the NFC East team. The loser of that last game could travel to the NFC East, which could be interesting. I don't know what to think. I mean, you hate to say, and we talk about this every preseason, where we go with the Packers until someone proves us otherwise, which I kind of think is going to play out over the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah, I agree.
But part of me is like, well, how do you bet against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs? And part of me is like, how do you bet against a team that has Adrian Peterson when they're going to run the ball?
Right.
I don't know. I really don't know. So that's going to be interesting to see how that ends up. But anyway, they did give the ball to Adrian Peterson more on Thursday night, which was good. They only gave it to him 8 times last week, I think. But Arizona found a way to score enough. They scored a few early, and then were able to kind of get things done. But Teddy Bridgewater got sacked and prevented them from having a chance to kick a field goal because time expired. Should have thrown it away. All kinds of questions there about the play call, about his decisions. He owned it. He's like, I need to get rid of it. The play was taking too long. But he throws it away. They have a chance to tie the game, but Arizona won, and they're really good, 11-2, which is really interesting because Seattle is coming on strong. We'll talk about that later, but 11-2 is probably good enough for them to hold on to the division.
You would think, but they don't have an easy schedule. Now they got to come across the country to play in Philadelphia, who, admittedly has
been
been
night game too.
Crazy inconsistent. You have no idea what to expect, but they've been playing better recently. We just saw them win today. Then they get to host the last 2 weeks, but it's against Green Bay and Seattle, both probably playoff teams.
Right.
And one of them, depending on how they fare in the previous two, could possibly come down to a the division.
Right.
If they're 11 and what would it be? 11-4 at the time.
Yeah.
Seattle could be. I think Seattle doesn't have 5 losses yet, do they? They have 4, right?
I thought they do have 5.
Oh, they do have 5.
Yeah. So, but it would come down to.
Well, it would still make a difference if
because
they need Arizona to lose the next 2.
Who won the game? Seattle. Who won their first game?
Arizona won.
Yeah. Okay, that's huge. That's huge because if it. Yeah, well, obviously that gave Seattle another loss.
Well, that's interesting. If now Arizona loses, let's just say Arizona loses those 2, they're 11-4. Say Seattle wins their next 2, they're 10-5. Seattle wins, 2 teams 11-5, split head to head. Now comes the NFC. So I wonder who would win.
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know the conference. Oh, we can count it right here. Arizona, 1 conference victory, 2 conference, 3,
4.
Or does it go division first? Do they do divisional tiebreak?
No, I think it goes conference. I don't know. And the weird thing is, I don't know. Do they double count your division games? Like, so
Yes,
if it
I
goes
believe
divisional
that they
record
do.
and then it goes to conference, do they count your divisional games as well?
I do believe
Well,
that they do.
here's the thing though: if it's divisional first, it won't matter. If it's divisional games first, you would need to be tied there in order to go to the conference record. You know what I mean? So,
All right, 2 club to break a tie within a division, head to head.
Right. So best
Play
in
within the division.
Right. And then best
Common games.
Yeah, oh yeah. So it's not just division.
Right, because
it's
they
common
also
games.
played the same AFC conference.
Right.
All right, so then it does go to
It
division.
would be really tough to kind of.
Well, the only 2 losses now, they got a division loss there,
Yeah,
and they
that's a
lost to
bad one.
Pittsburgh. That's not a bad loss because
No.
it's out of conference, out of
Right.
division. So they would end up at 4-2 in the division because you
Right.
lost to Seattle, lost to St. Louis. Seattle
Lost to St. Louis that first
lost
week.
to
so
St.
that
Louis the
cancels
first
out.
week. Lost to Green Bay. That would hurt in the conference tiebreaker. Lost to Cincinnati.
Beat
doesn't
San
really hurt.
Francisco.
Lost to Carolina. That's hurts
Lost
in the
to Arizona.
conference. Lost to Arizona.
They haven't
So
played St. Louis the second time yet, did they? No, they end with St. Louis and then Arizona.
I think we would set up though they'd both be 4-2. So the division would be
so
the same.
it would go to.
It looks to me
common
though
opponents.
like, well, but see, then we'd have Arizona losing, common opponents, and
Right. And
Seattle beat Pittsburgh. Arizona lost to Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah, but what? Yeah.
It looks to me, without double checking it, because this could take us a very long time to do.
Well, and okay, so it's not conference. Do they count your division games then? Like, do they count those?
I don't know.
Because where you're going by percentage, you're not just going by record. Like, so
Essentially, Arizona needs 1 win and it's over.
Right.
Arizona
They get to
wins
13.
1 game.
Right.
Well, no, they just have to get to 12.
That's what yeah. So they get to 12.
Because the worst
And
they can be is
let's
12
be
before
honest,
the best.
They're
Seattle
going to be a
is
heavy
11-5.
favorite over the Eagles. Like, I say heavy.
It's coming. They're
I
coming.
think they're going to be 5.5 points. Like they're better than the Eagles. The Eagles are not good. The Eagles are better now
And
than
the
they
Eagles
were
haven't
earlier.
played well against the Cardinals either,
No.
especially under Arians.
Bruce Arians takes it to him, which is just kind of like rubbing it in, all the time that he was up for, the Eagles could have had him if they wanted him. The Football Life story was on him the other day. I only saw the very end. It was really good. He's a Pennsylvania guy. He coached at Temple.
As a lot of football players.
He coached at Temple in
are.
the 70s. Turned them around. They were awful. I say turned them around. Made them respectable. They beat Pitt 3 of the 4 or 5 years that he was there. He ended up getting fired from that, and his wife talks about how it saved his life, and he does too, because it was like he didn't delegate anything. He was head of recruiting, head coach, offensive coordinator, like quarterbacks coach, whatever. Didn't do any. And he had these migraines. He was getting like 5 migraines a week, and he just couldn't take it anymore. He got fired. Literally has not had a migraine since the day he got fired from Temple, because he just
Temple is just one massive headache. All right, let's talk about the team that they play next week, which being your Philadelphia Eagles, who won today. They needed it if they wanted to keep pace or gain ground in the NFC East.
Thanks, Robbie.
They had to win. So what happens? The Bills come down to Philadelphia with some former Eagles expecting, to show why they shouldn't have left him go or traded him, and Buffalo's heading back, and now with their AFC wildcard chances dashed.
Yeah, and that's it's a big win for the Eagles. Say what you will, they're 6-7. You know that it's not anything to be. No one's going to leave this game thinking, oh, they're great. If you look at their rankings, like offensively, they're 15th
middle of the pack.
They're 15th in points. They're 16th in yards. They're 19th in passing yards, and they're 12th in rushing yards.
While getting nothing out of DeMarco Murray.
Right. And Darren Sproles the last 2 weeks, where did this come from? It's crazy that he can keep doing this, punt returning and rushing just as a weapon overall. But the Eagles were good enough, and the defense played well today. You hold a team to 20 points. I always say if you can get to 21 in the NFL, you can't give up 21. Basically, if you don't
give up 21, and I expect to win.
And the Eagles got, I think, what was 23 today? They won 23-20.
Yeah, and.
Yeah, so the defense did their job. The offense had a key turnover that also took points off the board. So you can be frustrated with how it kind of plays out, but hey, they're winning their games. And as crazy as this is, I know technically they may not control their own destiny, but if they win their games, if they win their 3 games, they're going to make the playoffs. If they win their 3 games, they'll make the playoffs. Actually, they might control their own destiny because they play the 2 teams that are actually tied with them.
Right.
So that would mean Washington wouldn't win out, and it would mean the Giants also don't win out. So they would end 1 game ahead of both those teams. I think they.
Well, they also would have the straight-up tiebreaker with the Giants, and whereas the Redskins would be a little bit dicier because it would be a split head-to-head.
Right. So, but if the Eagles were to win out, that means Washington would have an extra loss. So, because they're tied in record right now.
Are they 6-7?
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
so,
you're right. Yeah.
Now that being said,
Philly's got to play the Cardinals.
They play the Cardinals, who we just talked about how are so good. So I think the Eagles lose, and then it comes down to can they
take care of your divisional game business
on the 26th, which is a Saturday game.
Yep.
So Saturday night. So actually, they play prime time the next 2 weeks. They play prime time on Sunday. And then they play primetime that Saturday against the Redskins. And then they end against the Giants. Both of those are at home, too. And something under Andy Reid, and we saw it a little bit in Chip Kelly era, like the Eagles weren't a good home team. I'm not saying they're a good team now, but their record at home has gotten better in terms of they went a long stretch without winning a home game. They've ended that, and now they have so being able to play those 2 games at home, I'm glad we're not traveling to Arizona. I'm glad they're traveling east. And I'm glad we don't play the Redskins down there. Just that's a great divisional game, though.
Okay, that answers my question. Or maybe it wasn't
announced. Is there a Christmas Eve game?
No, is there a Sunday night game the last week of the season? Or are they all 1 and 4 o'clock starts?
I feel like there is a Sunday night. I know there's not. I know
there's
no
no Thursday, no Saturday, no Monday. But is there a Sunday night?
I think there is.
There is not one listed, but I guess that allows them to flex
one in
anything.
Tonight. Right, they might flex one in. And I think they would have to do it tomorrow. Like, they do that a few weeks out, I think.
Right, well, that was my question. Because if they can wait another week and the Eagles beat the Cardinals, this would also couple with the Giants winning against the Dolphins. And then winning next week, whoever the Giants play next week.
Into a Sunday
do you
night
flex Giants-Eagles into the Sunday night game, meaning that the Eagles play 3 straight primetime games?
See, I would imagine that we'll see here. If Arizona loses and Seattle won today, maybe they flex the Seattle-Arizona game in there, thinking that could be. But I don't know. I really don't know. Actually, if they're given the choice to flex Seattle-Arizona or Philly, New York, they're doing Philly.
Well, they also have Vikings-Packers.
That could get flexed.
There's a couple options there. I mean, the Vikings-Packers is huge. Seahawks-Cardinals is huge. Eagles-Giants could be huge. What if the Cowboys beat the Packers and win next week, and then the last week they could knock the Redskins out of the playoffs? Remember we saw the Cowboys not make the playoffs in the last week of the season 2 years in a row?
Do you put the Panthers there, seeing if they're going to go undefeated
against the
Bucks,
here's the thing:
if they lose before then, which they might, because they may not need that game at all,
right,
or a couple games, then
they clinched the division today,
and they clinched the first round bye
with 3 weeks to go.
Yeah.
So a lot of interesting scenarios for Week 17, but back to Week 14. So the Eagles got the win.
We'll go through.
That's needed.
Right.
We mentioned talking.
Say what you will about Sam Bradford, and he's not lighting it up, but I think he has 13 over his last like 6 or 7-ish games. I think he has 13 touchdowns, 1 interception. Hey, now you take out 2 of those games. The Dolphins game, he played well in the first half, got knocked out, doesn't remember the first half, didn't play well in the second half, comes out of that game. That Dolphins game is a big one. That's one they should have won. They really had no business.
How about the Falcons game?
Falcons
the first Redskins game.
No, absolutely. They had no business beating Detroit, even though Detroit's not that good. They had no business beating Tampa,
Bucks.
even though Tampa isn't that good. They got blown out in those games. The Miami one, the Atlanta one, the Redskins. Those are the 3 that, if you look back, those are the ones I think that at the end they're most likely to be regretting, I should say. But hey, they're in it. I know it sounds crazy, and I'm not saying they're Super Bowl contenders, but if they were to win 2 out of their next 3 and 3 out of the last 4, and you add in last week, that would be like 4 out of their last 5. If they win 4 out of their last 5, get to host a playoff game, I don't think anybody would be thrilled about going there. You know what I mean?
No, not if they're on a roll like that.
And does this Packers team or this Minnesota team look like, oh, they're world beaters? They're going to be, a 10-point favorite coming into the Eagles because they're terrible? I don't think so, especially the Vikings. I mean, if the Vikings are coming in there, it's not like the Vikings Teddy Bridgewater hasn't really been lighting the world on fire lately. They'd be the 4.
The Eagles would be the 4, but wouldn't that make the Seahawks the 5?
Oh, yeah, you're right. The Seahawks would be... Never mind.
Because you're talking about the 6 seed teams.
Right.
The 6 seed is going to go to the 3 seed, which is going to be the Packers.
Right. So that would be the Packers. So, yeah. Well, wouldn't that be crazy? You could have Packers-Vikings 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Again.
Didn't that happen a couple years ago? And
Vikings,
Peterson ran all over the Packers the first time, and I think they
shut him down
the next. Yep. Yeah. Well, so the 1 seed is obviously the Panthers. Mm-hmm. Out of the
now
NFC
in that last one, sorry, I don't think the game mattered to the Packers. I think they had the division locked up,
and it was close.
But the Vikings needed the win to get into the playoffs.
Didn't Peterson run for 207 yards or something like that? Yeah. So you'd have the Panthers at 1, the Cardinals at 2, the
Packers at
3, the NFC East winner, which we're saying just for for argument's sake, the Eagles at 4, the Seahawks would be 5, and then the 6th seed would probably be the Vikings.
Right. Or Seattle. Come on. I need Seattle to get a couple losses here and end up...
Man, they're playing on fire. Same like last year. They started out sluggish beginning, middle, and then they turn it on at the end. And watch out. Russell Wilson has just been electric. Him and Doug Baldwin have incredible chemistry. The interesting thing is, now maybe it doesn't matter because of the way they're playing. Thomas Rawls went out injured, as I know, as a fantasy owner of him. That one hurt. So Lynch is out. I don't know if he's expected to come back next week or the week after. Rawls, who knows, with the ankle injury. They're going to have to rely on Russell Wilson. Thankfully for them, he's thrown 15 touchdowns to 1 interception in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, right when people wrote him off. But anyway, it's interesting. So who knows? But all I'm saying is, if the Eagles get 4 out of 5 wins, and then are able to make the playoffs at 8-8, I don't think teams will be real excited about coming east. Now, they'd be favored. The Vikings are a better team. The Packers, if it were to flip, are the better team. Seattle is a better team. But you never know. If you have to come in a one-game scenario, especially with the offense. I know the offense hasn't really shown it, but the Eagles' offense can put up numbers. They can do that. It's just a matter of whether they can put it all together at the right time. And
no, you're right.
So, and honestly, this will sound terrible, but for no other reason than to keep the other NFC East teams out of it. Don't let them make the playoffs. So, we'll see how it plays out. I think the Eagles lose to Arizona, and then I don't know that they can win both of the last. I think they might win one of the last 2, but they haven't shown me anything that really has me super convinced they're not going to go 0-3. They could go 3-0, but I think they're much more... if I had to rate the possibilities, I'd probably say 1-2, 0-3, then 2-1, and then 3-0. It would be my ranking of the likelihood of those scenarios playing out.
Do you know... Now, obviously, you're rooting for the Dolphins tomorrow night to beat the Giants. Should the Dolphins be the Dolphins and the Giants win, move to 6-7, that's a 3-way tie on top of the NFC East at 6-7. Do you know who the Giants play next week?
No. Oh, they play Carolina.
Now, Carolina really only has enough to play for if Arizona would keep winning. You know, because once Carolina gets to 14 wins, they might clinch number one. It depends on all those tiebreakers we talked about. If they win against the Giants next week to get to 14-0, they might be the home field all the way through.
It gets crazy, too, just because you don't know, like, how much does 16-0 really mean, especially this week where they had some guys start to get nicked up.
Right.
Here's the thing. If you have a chance to get a fully, like, healthy or as close to healthy as you're going to have in the playoffs, Cam Newton and crew, you know, I understand 16-0 is special, and hey, if you want to go for it, go for it. But you already have the bye. If you can give them a couple weeks. Now, the thing is, you don't want to get rusty. I understand that. But, man, they have a chance. Like, they look really good in their games. Like, I know people keep writing them off, and I understand. Like, they don't – it's not the same as, like, the Patriots team that was undefeated, just mowing over everyone. It's a different style of game, but they look really good. Like, man – I bet they're glad they didn't fire Ron Rivera.
Oh, yeah, which we talked about. Give him time. Right. And, you know, and I'm right now, and it's been up and down, back and forth, but this season I'm eating crow on Cam Newton because he looks, I mean, people are calling him the MVP, and while he's not having a world-beating quarterback season, his quarterback numbers are good, but he's leading that team, and he's an emotional leader, and he's doing it on the field when it needs to be done. I mean, what more can you say about him? The team is 13-0, and he's a big part of the reason why.
I absolutely agree. And he's fun to watch right now. Like, he's fun to watch. Like, you know, just how hard he throws the football is insane.
They were talking about that one insane. Touchdown pass.
And it's not – they don't wobble. I mean, if he throws one that wobbles, he can throw a wobbly football 65 yards, which most people can't throw a tight spiral 65 yards. And when he throws a rocket, it looks like he's going to throw through some of the guys. Like Ted Ginn Jr., who looks like he weighs 160 pounds. Like, he looks like he's going to throw it through him. Like, unreal. Now, most of those Ted Ginn Jr. drops, but
not today, though.
Yeah.
All right. A couple of the games that you're not going to spend much time on. We talked about the Seattle a lot, but they destroyed the Ravens 35-6. Yeah. Ravens are just very, very bad. Yeah, that's a top 5 pick coming in for them. And a game that really means nothing. The Browns beat the 49ers 24-10.
Is this actually worse for the Browns that
Johnny Manziel pretty bad.
Johnny Manziel gets wins? It also hurts their draft pick.
Yeah.
And if he wins a couple games here, how do you say, oh, he's not our quarterback going forward?
Yeah, it's bad. They should have let the 49ers win. Yeah. I know with everything going on with the Sixers and basketball, you don't want to talk about a team tanking on purpose, but the Browns should not have won that game, and they did.
Hey, but just real quick, and I had this discussion with a couple Browns fans last weekend, at least the Sixers are trying to be bad.
Right.
The Browns are trying to be bad, and they're bad at that.
Right.
The Sixers are very good at being bad.
Yes, they are. Right. So much so that the NBA and the owners have decided that they have to bring in other people to help them not be so bad.
Then the strategy's working. When you get the NBA to wave the white flag and just be like, all right, we'll give you the number 1 pick. Like, just use rig the lottery like they did for the Knicks and Ewing.
Right.
And then we'll be on our
way.
Or
Cleveland and LeBron.
They draft Simmons, at LSU, and everything will be great. And the Sixers starting lineup next year, everybody will be like 6'9" or taller. All right, we're good.
All right, Lions fell to the Rams. That was one that was maybe a bit of a shocker. The Rams have been fading. The Lions looking good. Lions only put up 14.
Todd Gurley was back in form today. 140 yards.
I had a discussion with Adam yesterday at the Santa breakfast for Relay for Life, and he was talking, what happened to Todd Gurley? Well, he's back here today. Yeah. And a game that meant a lot for the Jets and nothing for the Titans. New York steamrolled Tennessee at the Meadowlands 30-8. The Titans' only points came on a halfback pass to Marcus Mariota. So Mariota has now had a touchdown this year, throwing, passing, and receiving.
Yeah, Todd Bowles, they hit that little lull in the middle of the season, but the Jets are moving in the right direction again. He was a good hire for them. The interesting thing there is with Fitzpatrick, he's been good enough at a couple places. It's crazy.
But it's one of those things, they're going to hitch their wagon to him like Buffalo did.
Right. I find it hard
Houston tried to do.
I find it hard to believe that O'Brien couldn't have done
more with him.
But if he likes Hoyer, I don't think he really likes Hoyer though, but who knows?
Who knows?
But Anyway,
the Jets have won 3 in a row for the first time since 2011.
Yeah, you love saying that.
I love saying that. But of course, they're 8-5 now. And my Dolphins are struggling to get to 6-7. They'd have to win tomorrow night to do that. So who am I to talk about the Jets right now? And one of the shockers. Now I know, even when he was healthy, Andrew Luck wasn't doing anything. He's out. Hasselbeck was in today. But man, oh man,
I think they were up 13-3. I think they were up 13-3.
It was 13-3 at one time. It was 13-9 at half. I believe it actually may have been 16-9. And then all of a sudden the Jaguars scored 42 unanswered points.
The Jaguars.
They beat the Colts 51-16, and for the moment put the Texans in first place in that division. Now the Texans have to play the Patriots tonight, but the AFC South, interesting. I'm not sure the Jaguars are actually even out of it yet after that win today. They're 5-8. The other two teams are possibly 6-7.
I think it's unlikely, but I don't think they're out of it.
Well, look at their schedule. They get to host Atlanta, who's just falling apart.
Right.
They go to New Orleans, who knows, although it's tough to play in the Superdome. And then they have a big game against Houston to end the season. Maybe they'll flex that game.
Right. If nothing else, that's a big game for Houston probably at the end. That's interesting. And I'm glad for Jacksonville to kind of at least look like they're turning it around in the right direction. I know they have 5 wins right now, but it's better than they've been in a long time, and they showed some promise from their young players. Allen Robinson, I don't know what his numbers were today, but last week
he's either tied or leads the league in touchdown receptions.
Last week he had a huge week, and he's doing it week after week. I'm really happy for him. You and I can't really speak for you on this, but I know I think we are similar. We kind of like Bortles in terms of what we thought he could do.
We were just shocked they took him at 3.
Yes, I agree on that.
But
I kind of like him. I thought he was one of the better quarterbacks in that group, and looks like super early for a 5-8 team, but it looks like they're starting to turn the corner and starting to believe that they're actually going to win games, which is huge.
I completely believe 100% that if the owner of the Texans wasn't a South Carolina alum, O'Brien wanted Bortles at 1.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and now they have Jadeveon Clowney who can't stay healthy. Yeah.
And they're still trying to find a quarterback. And look what they're doing with Hoyer, Mallett, Fitzpatrick over these last 2 years. What they're doing, got much better. They were 1-15 the year before. Last year, they go 6-10 or something like that, 5-11.
Yeah.
They got better.
Right.
This year struggled at the beginning. Now coming on,
but that happens with young teams, and now they're getting in there. And
they're 6-6. They host the Patriots tonight. That's a big game. New England doesn't want to lose 3 in a row.
Right.
So you don't expect the Texans to win, but it's at home. You never know.
Beat up offensive line. J.J. Watt might beat the crap out of them.
Look at the Texans' schedule the last 3 weeks, though. If they want to win the division, it's right there for them.
Yeah,
they have to go to Indianapolis, go to Tennessee, and they host Jacksonville. They play all 3 AFC South teams the next 3 weeks after the game against the Patriots tonight. So if the Texans are going to make some noise and get to the playoffs, you'd expect them. They'd have to win those 3 divisional games and probably finish 9-7. And it would be a successful second year for Bill O'Brien in Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at it, I find it hard to believe Brian Hoyer is their long-term solution at quarterback. When they get someone in there, that could be a real interesting scenario.
And it's setting up perfectly. If Hackenberg declares, he's no longer viewed as a top 10 pick because of what he's done at Penn State offense.
People think he's going to go like 3rd or 4th round.
Isn't situated for what he does.
Right.
We saw what he could do with Bill O'Brien in the pro-style type offense. That's not what Donovan ran with Franklin the last 2 years. It would have been nice to see what he would do with Moorhead, but I don't think he's sticking around. Why should he?
I'd love to see what he could do. He shouldn't stick around. Even, in my opinion, even if he is going to go, here's the thing. He might be a Saturday pick now.
That's 4th round. I think he's going to light up the combine because he has the raw tools that are going to look great.
If he thinks he's going first 2 days of the draft,
first 3 rounds,
I say go, because why learn a new system again?
Well, I mean, we'll know soon enough because the declaration is literally almost to the day a month from now. Yeah, it's mid-January. It's like a week. It's like within a week after the national championship.
Right, which is really tough because a lot of those players have to decide really quickly, what they're going to do. Not that they haven't thought about it some, but
Penn State's bowl game is January 2nd, so Hackenberg will have about 2 weeks to make his decision. Talk to Moorhead, talk to Franklin, play the bowl game, see how it goes. Hey, if he feels like he has unfinished business, I'm absolutely open to him coming back to Penn State. I'm not writing him off. I want him in the blue and white.
Right, exactly. I don't have a problem with him leaving either.
I don't.
Like, especially
I wouldn't
learning
fault him for
a
that
new
either.
system. That would be his fourth system.
Third.
Third. But then leading into knowing it's only for a year, going into the pros and learning a fourth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
But I think he goes because I think he's smart enough to know, and whatever agent he hired will be telling him this. He can talk to O'Brien once he declares. I don't think there's any. You can talk at the combine and whatnot. He can figure it out, and I really think after he performs, he's going to be at worst a third-round pick and probably a second. And it wouldn't surprise me if a team in the later first round. I mean, how many times do we see quarterbacks rise as the process goes on? And look at the way they were talking about him after his first season and then entering his second year. He was a top 5, top 10, maybe number 1 overall pick. He wasn't able to do it in the Penn State system these past 2 seasons. Some fault to his. It's not all the systems or the coaching's fault, but some of it's on him. But a lot of it was put on the situations he was put in behind a shoddy O-line that couldn't keep him upright and terrible play calling. Right. He's going to put on a show at the combine and in his private workout. And I definitely think that he's a top 50 pick. I could easily see him in the 20 to 30s in the late first round. And hey, who's going to be sitting there in that area? Yeah. Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans are going to be sitting there.
Now, here's the thing. Will O'Brien be able to sell the Texans on him, though? Because you just said it, and this is part of why there were rumors before the Texans went on this little tear that there's a rift there. Actually, the rumor of the rift is probably accurate. But the degree to which that's going to cause dysfunction on the team is probably where it gets exaggerated. O'Brien has a certain vision for the team, I think, and I'm not sure that's necessarily shared in the front office and the owner. I don't know how big of a deal that'll be. So we'll have to wait and see, though. But I think if the team sees that, they can get him as a value, not necessarily a top 10 pick. And O'Brien, that's an easier sell. It's an easier sell for O'Brien to be like, hey, I want to get this guy with the 50th overall pick as opposed to like the 14th pick or something like that. That's
well, I mean, if they win the division, they'd be picking, I think, in the low 20s.
So you get them at
to me, that's value. To me, that's value.
Right,
I mean, if they win a playoff game, now you're picking in the mid 20s. I still think that's good because I think when he gets in the right system with the right coach, the right players around him, I think he will excel. And I think the Texans would be a great place for him to go.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
To be back with O'Brien and other familiar faces from his first year at Penn State, I just think that would be perfect for him and the Texans.
Right.
All right, a couple quick games to run down before we head out here. Chiefs-Chargers, I don't know if you got to watch that one or not, Justin.
I heard the end.
But holy crap, that was interesting. The Chargers converted, I think, 3 4th downs to drive down to the field. They got down to the half-foot line, and then they got a delay of game penalty that pushed them back to the 5.5 with 5 seconds to play. Then they threw a pass, real fast though, incomplete, 2 seconds to play. Threw another pass, just bounced off of Danny Woodhead's hand. Now, he was running like a wheel route, and it was outstretched, so it wasn't, he didn't drop it or anything. But it was crazy. The last 2 minutes of that game was absolutely insane. It means nothing for the Chargers in the long run, and it's probably better for them to lose. But the Chiefs are playing.
7 in a row.
Chiefs have now won 7 in a row and are absolutely on a tear.
They won week 1, lost the next 5, and haven't lost since.
Right. And the Andy Reid Magic working out there in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And they kept it close with Denver in week 2.
Should have won that game.
Probably should have won that game. Lost to Green Bay by 10. Lost to Cincinnati by 15. Lost to Chicago by 1. That's a heartbreaker. Lost to Minnesota by 6. Then all of a sudden, they beat Pittsburgh, killed Detroit, beat Denver the next time around, killed San Diego, beat Buffalo, beat Oakland. Now beat San Diego again.
And look, they have Baltimore, Cleveland, and Oakland.
They could
Oakland's the best team they play left.
They could finish 11-5.
Yeah.
They could finish 11-5 and have won 10 straight. So you're talking about hot teams. We've mentioned, and my dad texted me, Seattle and Pittsburgh. Watch them if they get in. We talked about Seattle. We're going to talk about Pittsburgh in a second here. Kansas City. Yeah. They win 10 in a row and no one's going to be talking about it. At 11-5, they're seed though.
And going to Indy or Houston in the first week of the playoffs.
And the first week of the season, they beat Houston in Houston.
Right.
So, man, the AFC is stacked.
Yeah. So is the NFC East.
Yeah. Patriots, Bengals, Broncos, Chiefs, all probably with 11-plus wins.
Right,
Chiefs can't win more than 11, but
Right.
all the other teams are probably going to be 12 or 13 win teams.
So big game for the Chiefs, a big win for the Chiefs.
To hold on and get those ugly games you need to win, and they did it. Redskins, Bears, 24-21. You wanted Robbie Gould's magic to tie that game, and the Bears would pull that in overtime, but didn't happen. Redskins got the win, and if the Giants beat the Dolphins tomorrow, three-way tie in the NFC East.
The Falcons are really bad.
Falcons have lost, 6 in a row?
Opposite of the
Chiefs. Yeah,
essentially
opposite.
Lost a bunch.
And I think 7 of 8.
Yeah.
Falcons started 5-0, and I believe they're now a 6-8.
Yeah, thanks.
Or 6 and
thanks
7,
Cody
6 and
for
7.
missing that 44-yard field goal.
Panthers destroyed them today, 38-0. They clinched the division title.
Yep. And then
what happened to the Bucs now?
More teams you can't figure out. The Buccaneers lost when a game that you think, oh, they should beat the Saints coming in. Nothing. You know. I don't
after
know.
they looked so strong, beating up on the Eagles.
Yeah.
They then lost to Tampa Bay before eking one out against Atlanta. Now they lose in New Orleans.
Right.
And they got St. Louis, Chicago, and Carolina. The first two, not pushovers, probable toss-up games, but then they got to finish with Carolina, who may not be playing for anything. I understand that. But Tampa Bay had a chance with Jameis Winston down there in his first year to make some noise, make the playoffs as a wild card, and now they're just throwing it away with losses to Indy and New Orleans.
Yeah, and that's just inconsistency, a lot from a young football team. I think that they are getting better. They're a lot better than they were last year, obviously, but yeah, there was hope that they'd be a little stronger. So.
All right, real quickly to wrap up before we go. Steelers went to Cincinnati with a lot on the line and beat them up pretty good. The Bengals lost Andy Dalton for the game, and at least next week, Tyler Eifert left with another head injury, and the Bengals only have A.J. McCarron to carry them through. I believe they play San Francisco next week. Not a difficult game, but the Bengals are limping.
Right.
And
now are in position to not have the bye if New England can
right,
win
if New England and Denver take care of business, now all of a sudden you went from possibly having home field advantage throughout to now being
and they have
forced
to play
play
Denver
on the road.
yet. They play San Francisco, then they're at Denver, and then they have Baltimore coming.
So
to Cincinnati.
they need to win the game at San Francisco with a backup quarterback, and they got to hope Andy Dalton's ready to go for that.
What
Denver
benefits
game.
them is. It benefits Baltimore to lose the last week of the game, last week of the season, and it benefits Cincinnati to win. So,
you'd expect at worst Cincinnati to be 12-4.
It's going to hinge on Andy Dalton seeing a specialist tomorrow morning about his thumb. He
may be out to the playoffs, though.
Yeah. And who knows if there's ligament damage there? That could be bad news for them.
All right, and the Steelers now 8-5.
Coming on
They've
strong.
They've gotten through the injuries of their own. Now they're coming on strong.
As I started the show with.
Huge game next week.
Right.
They host the Broncos at Heinz Field. It's a late kickoff, 4:25. And then they got 2 pushovers at the end, 2 teams not playing for anything, which sometimes can be dangerous. Right. And the Pittsburgh-Baltimore, Pittsburgh-Cleveland games, those are huge rivalries. But still, the Steelers should win both of those 2. That guarantees them, if they can do it, at least 10 wins. They upset Denver. All of a sudden, they're 11-5.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out in the AFC.
It may turn out that you need essentially 11 wins to make the playoffs in the AFC.
How crazy is that?
Kansas City, Pittsburgh, but then you'd also have Denver, New England, and Cincinnati, all with 11 or more wins.
Yeah.
So the only team that sneaks in there is the AFC South champion, probably with 8 or 9.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Which means that a potential team like the Jets could be 11-5 and not in the playoffs, I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds in both conferences. Different reasons.
Yeah, right. The AFC South is like the NFC East.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. The also ran, Right, so we'll have to see how it finishes out. So it'll be an exciting 3 weeks here, end of the year. It leads us right into, actually bowl season will have started way before that, but the college playoffs leading into that, so should be it's an exciting couple months of football we have left.
Yes, definitely. All right, so we're gonna wrap up the 193rd episode here. Any shout outs from you, things to say?
Not off the top of my head, no.
All right, I'm gonna say here, this coming Thursday the new Star Wars movie comes out. Everyone should go and see it. Justin and I will be there with 3 of our friends, including music producer Greg Hill, at the 7 p.m. showing, the earliest showing that you can see it released to the public, 7 p.m. at IMAX 3D. We will be there, and I definitely, I'm sure I'll have to talk about it next week on our Christmas show, which will be next Sunday, probably in the afternoon, December 20th. We'll be doing a Christmas show. It'll be our last show of 2015. We'll take the week off in between Christmas and New Year's and be back in 2016 with all your last week NFL action and NFL playoff stuff getting ready to go. So yeah, go see the new Star Wars movie. And I'm not going to give out any birthday stuff because we're going to be on the day after. So
all right.
I'll wait till the next time to say those things. Anything else from you?
Not from me, no.
All right, then thanks for joining us. That wraps up the 193rd episode of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show.
We hope you tune in every Sunday afternoon for our take on sports. Until next time, I'm J-Raff.
And I'm Joe Mays. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Don't forget, you can download each episode of the show from the podcast section of the iTunes Store. We'll see you next time, and thanks again for listening.